In March of 2022, the Strathmere Fishing and Environmental Club held a reunion meeting at the firehouse at which longtime members related their experiences over the years with the club. Randy Roche organized the meeting and the speakers, and we'll begin with Randy.
From there, I just want to say thanks to everybody that made this meeting happen. Harmon, you helped so much. Rory, the entire board, Herbie and Brian, Richie, thanks for getting all the food together and the drinks. And you guys for showing up. I'm not sure how I should run this from here. I think maybe one of the good things to do is just get it rolling. And I invited all the past presidents to be here that could be. A lot of them are here. Eddie, thanks for coming, man. How about all the past presidents just stand up that are here so we can give you a round of applause. I know what I wanted to say. It just came back to me. You can't live in the past. We all know that. Sometimes I wish I could. And this isn't an attempt to do that. This is an attempt just to see some old friends and reminisce a little bit and move on with our 2022 fishing season. Fun. You know, getting together to fish, do what we do as neighbors and friends and fishermen, and support the community, so forth. So I think I'll defer to Mr. Townsend, Dave Townsend, who was one of our first presidents. So you were the first, Dave?
Second.
Second. Yeah, there's a couple presidents that aren't here for reasons. Jack Clements was a big reason this club started. Glenn Cunningham, from the beginning, really helped keep the club rolling. I guess he was our treasurer in the beginning, or had lots of jobs. Bud Lyon, avid fisherman, great guy, not here with us today, he's passed. Am I missing anybody, Dave? Robert Coffey's not here, but I think Rob might come over. He was made aware of the meeting. I hope he can. Started here. Oh, shit. Thank God, because that would have been the death of me. My good friend and golf buddy, Mike Ollie, past president, and all the board members that have done so much for this club. How about everybody stand up and give yourself a round of applause? Come on, man. Membership. The club doesn't work without the membership and the support of the fire company, community at large. It just doesn't work. It's a real classic case of a community club. From my perspective, it was one of the best things I ever did, getting involved with this group of knuckleheads. Because I had a passion for fishing since I was a little kid. I would fish in puddles where I knew there weren't any fish. But I just wanted to do it. And this was, Dave introduced me to it a long, long time ago, and just ran with it in my own way. It's good. Dave, you want to take this from me, please?
Okay. Dave Townsend, for those of you who don't know me, I was the second president behind, really, as Randy said, the force behind this organization is Jack Clements. Without Jack Clements, there is no Strathmere Fishing Club. And I get asked a lot about, in fact, I want to get Jack in. If you don't know him, he's a mover and shaker in town. And I get asked a lot about how the club got started, when it got started. Well, my memory's not what it used to be. So I'm going to tell you what I remember. And if it's wrong, I'm sure somebody will stand up and say that's bullshit, you know. But Pete Thomas used to run Larry's Dock, which then became Courses Marina, owned by Joe Coffey. And I think he wanted to start a fishing tournament, a bluefish tournament. Well, the reason being is he sold gas, he sold bait, so in a good way that, you know, good for business. So that was in '84. And if you look at the shirt over there on that table, it's the original bluefish shirt. The drawing was done by Margot. Margot, I don't know what kind of fish that is, but it didn't look, no offense. Margot was
generic.
So that went for a year or two, and then and I started helping Jack out because he took over the marina, and started helping him out with this tournament, which he wanted to continue because he could sell gas, and so I went another year or two, and then it started costing us money. You know, whatever we were charging wasn't paying for the party afterwards, which was more expensive than anything. You know, the beer that was food and all that. So he said to me one day, he said, "Dave, we should start a club." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, we should start a fishing club." And I said, "Well, who the hell's going to join this fishing club? You know, what are we going to have, 10 members, 15 members? I don't know. You know, I don't see." "Yeah, but we could charge dues, and then we wouldn't have to pay for all this stuff." So anyway, you can see what happened. I mean, what happened today. I'm sure if Jack's looking down on this, he's probably amazed at himself. So he was the first president. I was the first vice president. Candy, I think you were the treasurer.
Yeah, not right away.
Oh, was that Waddington?
I have some stuff to back
Yeah, well,
you up.
the reason he's the treasurer, that was a story we shouldn't tell, maybe we will because it's 40 years later. Margot was our first secretary, right? And Jimmy Callahan, I think, was sergeant of arms, and I'm not sure he was.
Greg Shetler was.
What was he?
Greg Shetler was the accountant, because he was working at the
He
bank.
was the accountant.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
working at the bank.
Yeah.
He was, I wasn't.
The treasurer, he was
Oh,
like
he
the
was the
first
first
treasurer.
one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But in the very,
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. So anyway, after several years, then I became president. We got a new board and so forth. And then Nightmare came about, and that became a big event, obviously. And then we had weak fish tournaments. That's turned over. And I think one of the good things about the club is when something like we had a weak fish tournament. Or no weak fish anymore. Well, Bucktail maybe you probably would.
They're coming back.
Okay, all right. But we figured, nobody's catching any weak fish, so let's do away with that one. And then some additional things. We came up with the kids tournament, which you guys did, and I thought that was terrific. So it's nice that you turn over when things are kind of losing their, like the bluefish tournament. We had 45 boats in the bluefish tournament. They'd open the bridge and we'd all go through, and it was crazy.
Yep.
And it was a really, really good time. It was a big event, but then that kind of fizzled out. We don't even have that anymore, but that's okay. We had a shark tournament one time. Anyway, that kind of fizzled out. So anyway, everything's moving in the right direction. I think the subsequent boards have done a great job. Everybody puts their fingerprint on what's going on. And I guess with that, if anybody has questions or anything at any point, let me know. And if I can remember, I'll tell you what happened. If I can't remember, I won't.
Take credit for the videos.
I should actually apologize for the video. There should be 3 or 4 years of Nightmare, Bluefish Tournament, and 4th of July parade on this video. And one of them, my sister, look, see the guy carrying the camera right there? That's when you had the cameras up on your shoulder, you do a VHS. Now, as this goes through, you may see Vanna White, because you tape something on TV, and then you want to tape over it, and you don't get it all, so Vanna White's in there, I think. That's my daughter Amy right there. She's 38 now, I think, or 37. And so anyway, you may see a little bit more of my family than you would of everybody else, but I think the neat thing about it is you can see the town as it used to be. You can see people that aren't with us anymore. You can see yourself, possibly.
Yeah, Charlie Doverstein was just up there.
Doverstein, right, yeah. And I'll tell you who else is in this video, which I think is neat, is you'll see Jerry Bonzo in here. Obviously you probably will miss him, but Jerry Bonzo, he's no longer with us, and for those of you who knew him. And also Amy Massey is in here. And Amy died of cancer at a young age, as did Jerry. In their 30s, so anyway. So enjoy it. It's one of those things where you don't have to watch it, just watch it in the back. It's there, look at it whenever you feel like it. So with that, I will turn this over to Mr. Shetler.
Yeah, the oldest living member of the club, we believe. Yeah, and that's a good point. I want to thank Dave for really helping this meeting, going into his personal archives. I guess as soon as he got the first email, he called me and said, "Hey, you want me to help you with some of this stuff?" It's good.
But one thing about it is, I guess I'm the oldest living president, and the key word there, living. So
Dick Chet.
No, President.
I am the oldest living Strathmere Fishing and Environmental Club member. 30 years ago, my wife Jane and I retired, and we have been here ever since. 25 years before that, Jane's parents had a home down in Whale Beach, and I was in education as an educator, teacher, administrator, all kinds of stuff. And consequently, I had my summers off. So we would come down every summer for 25 years, raise the kids, learn to know the people. After 25 years, we were still called Shoogies. We didn't belong here. We were outsiders that were taking advantage of all the advantages that were here. Well, that being said, I was going to talk a little bit about the origin of Club. Dave has covered that pretty well. But one thing I want you to know, 30 years ago, maybe 31 or 32, when the club started, in the village of Strathmere, we're calling it a village, the village of Strathmere, there was 110 voters. That was the year-round population of Strathmere. These fellas that took it upon themselves to start a club were up against the odds right away from the get-go. You take that number, cut it in half, and you're dealing with 55 men. How many of those 55 were had fishermen? I have no idea. But fortunately, in the summer, we had a lot of shoobies come into town to fish. And when they heard about the club, they were immediately impressed about it. And all of a sudden, we had members coming out our ears. In fact, at one point, when the membership reached 50, the board had a discussion of whether we should cut it off. No, that's not fair. Serious talks when the membership went to 100. Well, really, this is getting out of hand now. It's really a business. It's a corporation, and we need some help. I'm going to toot my wife's horn. I don't know how many of you knew Jane, but Jane was in the club from the day we moved here. For 17 years. When the club got to this big, Jane said, I'll take the responsibility for getting all the membership records and so forth in order. Now, 30 years ago, you're old enough to remember, did we have computers? Maybe in business, but I would warrant that no one in this room had a computer in their house. Did we have email? What was that? Did we have cell phones? No. So the major problem to overcome in those days was how to create communication to the members. And Dave and I were speaking earlier, and he said to me, do you remember licking stamps? I said, I certainly do, because that was the avenue of communication. Letters being sent out to the members. It wasn't timely, obviously. We didn't learn anything about situations health-wise or family-wise or anything of that nature. And gradually, I think in part to Jane, we sort of became a club in the current century. How many of you now have computers in your house? How many of you have cell phones with you? How many of you understand email? I'm still trying to figure out where I can store my information in a cloud. I don't know which one to put there.
On a rainy day.
But I will bet I will bet you, even with all these old-time members here, I would like to see how many of you raise your hand when I say, do you have an original Strathmere member certificate?
There was 25 of us got issued those.
In the beginning, when you joined the club, you received a certificate with your name on it, so-and-so is a member of the SFEC.
And we used to meet, and our first meetings were in Norm Miles's house over on the
I
bay.
can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Our first meetings were in Norm Miles's house over on the bay. Do you recall that?
No, I don't.
Margo was just reminding me.
Club 13, there was 13 members in the beginning when we got started.
That's right.
Before we really sat down and had some.
No. Let me
Go ahead, Dick.
say-
I'm sorry to
Let me
interrupt.
say one more thing about
Yeah.
Jane. Audio is my favorite topic. Jane passed away 17 years ago. It doesn't seem like that long. And in memory of Jane, the club decided that they would create a memory bench in memory of her service to the club, which they did. And one of our first secretaries, I don't know if you remember, the Henrys.
Robin.
And Kurt Henry took it upon themselves the responsibility to create that, which they did. And it was placed over in the playground, the old playground, which was at that time a mud puddle. One of the girls here in town, Karen Mitchell, took it upon herself to go to township and pound their ear for about 5 years or more until we had the current playground, which you may have seen, which if you haven't, you really should take a look at it. It's a nice piece of work, and the township, who gave us permission to put Jane's remembrance there, have located it so if you sit in it, you can look over the playground, watch your kids, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, see the sunset, see the water. It's just a beautiful sight that they have created. So I think it's amazing the way this club has grown. I can't put my finger on any one individual, but there are a couple I have to identify. And one, of course, is Candy Jankowski. For years, our treasurer, she took over when the club had some minor financial difficulties. Minor, major? We had some financial problems, that's that word. And after many years, I don't know how many, 6, 8, 7?
Probably 10, probably.
Candy turned the finances over to me. And I said to Candy, when I went to the books, I said, this is a pleasure to see record keeping like you have done for the club. A big hand for her. Another girl that sticks in my mind is not here today, and that is Carol Ferguson. Carol was pretty much instrumental in getting the Avenue or environmental issue up and going. And one of her nicest things that I remember, and I offer this as the club to a suggestion, for several of the fishing tournaments, Carol created artwork on various backgrounds. It might have been a broken oar or something. She was not only an accomplished artist, an extremely accomplished artist. Maybe someday the club can meet with Carol, get those pictures together that are now in the individual owners' homes, and make a collage of it and put it on our website. I think that would be great to see. And that about sums it up for me. If you're ever by the park, stop in, say hello to Jane, sit on the bench, watch her grandchildren run around.
Kowski,
Did you say Sandy?
Candy.
Oh, Sandy.
I've been a member of the club for 34 years. This is the folder I was given when I joined the club February of 1988. This is my certificate of membership, number 111 in February. This is Frank's. He was number 47. He joined about 3 months prior to me. Also in the folder was a copy of the bylaws, the 1989 schedule of events with all the, the tournaments in here, the member roster, and as Dick alluded, with addresses and phone numbers, no cell phones. We also already know that I was a treasurer for about 10 years, and it was a pleasure to serve. I'm in the accounting field in my personal life. I love to fish. I like to fish for flounder in the summer. I freshwater fish for trout in the spring and the fall. I've been to Alaska 3 times for halibut and salmon. I hope to go again next year because I'm still looking for that really monster halibut that looks like a gigantic flounder.
Candy, do you ever catch anything?
No.
Win a tournament?
What this club has done for our family. This is a trophy that my daughter won in 1991 when she was 12 years old. It's been sitting in her room this entire time because she has, through the club and my love of fishing, has encouraged her and made it easy for her to love the outdoors and love fishing. And last year, one more thing about Chrissy. She never missed a tournament since that one, except for one. And that was because her daughter had been born 2 days prior to that. So she could not fish. And last year, we had the ladies tournament, and my granddaughter, her daughter Eliza, who was 10 years old, fished in the tournament, and that was out all day long with us from 6 o'clock in the morning. She ended up winning the girls' division of the ladies' tournament. So we're up here at the firehouse for the award ceremony, and they decided they would present her award first. There was a table with 5 prizes. There was first and second women, first and second girls, and 1 overall winner. There were 5 prizes laid out on the table. Since they awarded Eliza first, she got her pick of the table. There was a nice rod and reel. There was a $50 gift certificate to a tackle shop. There was a $25 gift certificate to an ice cream shop. There was a nice beach bag, I think. And there was a whale Kurt Marina hat. Eliza picked the hat. And Chrissy and I are like, oh, you kidding? Well, she didn't need the rod and reel. She had her own anyhow. But, it was still, she picked the hat. And we
Oh, that's great.
We came home, because Frank hadn't come over. We came home, and she comes in the door, Grandpa, look at this hat. This is really quality hat. She was so excited. And Chrissy and I thought about it, and you know what? That was the best prize she could have picked off the table, because she'll have that hat forever. And every time she wears that hat, she'll remember that day. And that's all because of the fishing club. It's a great thing.
I'm loving it, man. I got a picture getting blown up. I think most of you know me. I'm Ed Anderson. I was born and raised here in town. My father was too. I've been on the island since 1896, my family. I had the privilege of actually running the flounder tournament for 25 years. And Candy tells you about Chrissy getting that first trophy. Well, I got news for her. I must have gave her another dozen more over those 25 years. She's a good fisherman. Everybody is in that family. She was original charter members, 25 of us. They offered me charter 5. I said, I won't take that. I said, I'm superstitious. I have to have 6 or 9. And Jack says, what's the problem? I said, well, I graduated in 69. I said, when I got shipped overseas and I went over on the Forrestal, that was 59. So when I transferred up the Forrestal into the patrol boats, I got on Flotilla 6 and they gave me boat 9. I said, I managed to get home in one piece. I said, I'm real superstitious. I'll take 6 or 9. So I ended up getting 9 out of the deal. When I was here, as president, I instituted the Big Brothers and Big Sisters fishing tournament. And we had that for years where we take kids out with their mentors on the boat in the bay. And that morphed into the Kids Day surf fishing tournament on the beach. So they could get more kids, because there just wasn't that many people available that late in the year with boats in the water. Someone pulled their boats and we were running out of time. We had more kids and mentors than we had boats to take them out, so we decided to turn it into a surf fishing tournament. The only thing I didn't get instituted, and I still think we should have, you know what I'm talking about, I think. I talked to Frank about it. Frank's in Ducks Unlimited. I've been saying this for years. I just felt that the club should involve, like Ducks Unlimited have. They have what they call a green wing club. It's kids. Kids. They come in an hour before our meeting, and they have their own board of directors. They get their own projects. It gets the kids interested, real young, in following us up the line. Because let's face it, sooner or later, man, it's just going to come to a point where I'm just too damn tired to go out there and get in that boat. I'm 85 years old, stuff like that. But if you can get kids interested at a very, very early age in something they really like, and you let them do their own thing, you ain't got to go out there and let them go in there and do it. Let them vote their own board of directors and everything. Give them projects to do. Clean up some of the island or the beach or wherever they need to do. I think it's a good program. I think we should institute it. And back then, nobody wanted to do it. But now that we're older and we all got grandkids. Christ, I got 3 great-grandkids. Come on, let's real about this, you know what I mean? Before it was like, oh my guys, I'm getting out of the house to get away from the kids, my guys. I don't want to do that, But I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that should be thought about on the board of directors. Maybe they'll institute it sooner or later. But other than that, I had a hell of a good time here. It's tough for me to come over here now. I bet you it's tough for a couple other people to come over here now. Like I brought my father over. That guy, I still got him. He's only 93 years old, but every time I bring him over, I take him home, he cries. He's like, I can't believe what they've done to my island. I'm like, that is what they call progress. He goes, this ain't progress. He says, they're just raping and destroying it. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what it is. It has changed since we started the club. We were really tight. And, you could go to anybody's house, you knew who the hell they were. I mean, I'm lucky I got Louise, because Louise, cleans these houses in the summertime. But she tells me, I said, look, don't tell me the name of the house. Tell me where the house is located at, and I'll give you the name. Is that close? She's not even close. That house was sold 5 times already. It's just the way it is. It's a big turnover, so it's tough to be a tight community like it was when this club first started, because we all had our own places over here, and you could go to anybody's house, knock on the door, and say, hey, come on in. Now, I don't know if they have these people. I probably don't know who 75%.
You still knock on my door.
Oh, I do that. But how many are left? Even my sister next door, 70 years, born and raised in that same house. I've had enough. She surrendered and moved out. That's saying something. So it's tough. It's like, but we got a good thing here. All we got to do is just keep it going. And I like to see us get more involved. Like it says, it's a Strathmere Fishing and Environmental Club, and I think, I can remember when we used to do all kinds of stuff environmentally. We'd go out there, guys who had boats early in the winter, we'd go out there and clean the meadow up from all the stuff that washed up there during the winter and stuff,
Something to think about for the environmental section of our...
I just know, and Frank knows from working out there in that meadow, you see all that stuff that was washed up all over the place out there. You could spend 2 days out there just picking the garbage up on top of the meadow. But it seems like, we've gotten a little bit away from the environmental aspect of it, that's all.
Yeah.
I'd like to see us get back into doing that more often. Remember we used to go put our own beach fence up? We used to do all kinds of stuff. We kind of gotten away from that. But, look, we got a good thing here. All we got to do is stay on a narrow path, and maybe, like I said, branch out. Like, we've done away with some tournaments, and we picked some other tournaments up. Maybe there's some things we're missing. I don't know. But you can't keep going on forward momentum. You got to make the momentum going. Because sooner or later, the momentum dies out. That's why I was always always wanted the younger generation to get involved, get physically involved in the club, give them things to do. You know what? They'll step in there in a couple of years. When we're like we want to be a part of the club. I mean, it's tough sitting out there on that board, and you're responsible for all these tournaments and designating responsibilities to people out there. You know, anybody who's been in any kind of club knows one thing. You could have 200 members, but you know what? It's only 20 that actually do all the work. You know what I mean? So the point is, you know, if you get the younger generation involved, you know what I mean? Hey, they'll be more than happy to step in there when they're 25 years old. They would love having an opportunity to do that. And they're already experienced because they know what it's all about. That's it. Nice talking to you.
Gonna talk. I know one thing about this club. You have about a 15-minute window of attention. Before that, I want to build off something Eddie said. Just for a second. Hey, Mike, just give me a second. Eddie did a lot to get little kids involved, and he would always come and get me on Saturday mornings. Where the hell did you go? Eddie, for the big brothers and big sisters, he would be knocking on my door. You ain't sleeping in on this one. So one day, Eddie got me out there, and I picked up a bunch of kids. It was a multi-group, racially, gender-wise, with their mentor. There was a 50-year-old woman, and I said, what do you guys want to do? I pulled up, of course, in Inlet Marina, picked them up at the end of the dock. I said, well, we want to go fishing. I said, all right, let's go out and see what we can find. We went out the inlet, I had Patrick with me as my mate. Eddie's nephew, Louise's nephew, right? They called it, right? And there was a big hurricane swell. That doesn't mean it's nasty. Hurricane swells are big rollers in August. The ocean was like glass. It was beautiful. We put a couple lines in, we called it Little Bluefish. I'm thinking, oh, these kids are going to be really happy. And every time, once we got out there, we went down the swell, the mentor would scream. So all the little kids hit the deck and screamed. My boat had a wheelhouse, a pilot house. I said, Patrick, get their head back there and shut them up and tell them everything's fine. Patrick, he goes, I told them they're going to be fine. We went down the next hurricane swell. They all screamed to hit the deck. I said, Patrick, we're going in. Tell him to reel his lines up. It was a cool thing you did there, Eddie. It was hard to put together, but it was fun. These kids were all big brothers and big sisters from different places with their mentors.
Okay, where are the Hollingers? Quartermaster, my husband Rich, daughter Liz, who just had a baby girl, December 23rd. And I'm Jan, if you don't know me. I usually do the 50-50. But so we just have a couple things we wanted to show you, which my husband's wearing the shirt. This is back in 1985, the original logo for the fishing club. If anybody's interested in that. The second was the original card. This was before I was married to Rich.
Does anybody still have one of them?
I don't know, but
Is that called
we can pass that around.
Membership card, yeah.
And as Candy
Janet, it
had
says on this
bought,
card, this entitles you to a lifetime of misery with Rich Oliver.
as Candy brought, we have the original.
43 and
pass that
44?
around. We also brought, we have, as Candy brought too, but back in 1989, we had 142 members. And the original member count right now is 16. And Liz is gonna, yeah.
So out of this original members, we have 16 remaining in the club. We have Eddie Andrus, Tom Andrus, Joe Callahan, Herb Hollinger, Rich Hollinger, Jan Hollinger, Frank Jankowski, Candy Jankowski, Bruce Riordan, Randy Roche, Dick Shetler, Margot, Dave Townsend, and Chris Rodden.
If somebody's here and it wasn't on the list, you know, I apologize, but that's what we came up with. And then Liz is going to read back in '89. what our activities were. Well, more or less what tournaments we did.
We just had a bunch of different, there were a bunch of different tournaments. There was the mackerel outing, we had a nautical flea market, a shark tournament, flounder tournament, bluefish tournament. There was a family day, lifeguard barbecue, sandcastles, wheat fish tournament, and then a bunch of different activities.
And then this was,
This was 87. 87 for the wheat fish
no,
tournament.
the flounder tournament. Yeah, no, this is flounder.
Oh, louder.
And this is 87, first place for the flounder tournament and third place for the flounder tournament. That somehow the Hollanders won.
See what happened.
And
We'll
this
remember
is my shed in my backyard. It's called the Jan Cave. Some people have been there before, others haven't. But these are all our trophies since 87 from the Hollanders. Anybody?
That count the ones you bought for me?
So anyway, if anybody wants to look at this, it would be here. A little nausea. So anyway, the Hollanders were blessed to be a big part of the club. I mean, we're always involved,
Always
as
fishing.
you know, and fishing. But another thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if anybody has, is our pleasure is the osprey nest. Thank you, Dick Omrod, because we always bring the boat to deploy them, and
And
it's
all
a
the help
big
and
thing
everything and all.
to us, our family, that the club started that and is keeping it up. And they're teaching George now, I think, and Brian how to build them, and that's all I have to say, and I'm blessed I'm a member.
I have one thing to say that kind of doesn't have to do with fishing, but all the years in the club, we had these heavy, wet-ass picnic tables. So we had to go, that was my job. I would borrow a buddy's car trailer. I had to go to everybody's house and lift these heavy picnic tables and then put them in the downstairs in the firehouse. Sometimes they were soaking wet or whatever, but yeah, that was a tough one.
Well, that was our storage. We stored them. Everybody would have a picnic table.
Yeah.
But then when you needed
But
them
they
for
didn't
one of our
carry
days, you had to go get them.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Huh?
but we're all very happy, and thank you for.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right?
Well, a couple of things I'd like to talk about. First of all, it's been a pleasure to be involved in this club for 20 plus years. It's really a lot of fun. And one thing that I really had quality time in this club is with my father.
Amen.
He was the best. He loved this club. He was a trustee. He lived for this club. And he's the one that I would take out fishing every weekend. He couldn't wait till I got down from work. We spent 2 days out in the boat. And he fished with me till he was 95 years old. On his 95th birthday, we were out there fishing. And all my buddies used to say, "Herb, why do you keep him out there for so long? The guys are out there for 10 hours. And I said, he doesn't want to come in. His famous thing was, let's just do one more drift. But he was a good flounder fisherman. He did a lot for the club. And that was really a good motivation to be involved in the club. One thing that, again, I want to remind everybody about these shirts. My son, Dave, who was a good fisherman, and he designed this shirt as well as a lot of the Nightmare shirts over the years. And one thing on the back of this shirt, everybody take one of these shirts with you when you leave today too. They're on the table over there. Everybody take a t-shirt. And what we have here is Strathmere Fishing Environmental Member. And basically it's friendship, honor, and conservation. You know, I look at this as a club, but what I look at it is friendships. We have so many good friendships we've made over the years. And you can walk down the street and everybody knows everybody from being in this club. You're out in the water, you go by, you wave. I break down, Frank will pull me in, right, Frank?
Maybe.
I mean, it's right.
Maybe the other way
Yeah,
around.
right, yeah, but it's all
And the other way.
the other way around.
Not doing a flatter tour anymore.
You guys know that story.
But it's all teamwork and friendship. You know, we talk about dues, we talk about the club. What we really need to talk about is the friendships that we've made over the years. And that's what I'm so thankful for. I look around this room, you know, I think of people like Glenn Cunningham, used to run the Wheat Fish Tournament, Kurt McDaniels, you can go on and on, Bud Line. It's just wonderful that we've had the experience to share with them and fish and come up here and have a beer and a hot dog. I mean, that's what it's all about, is the friendship. So I'd like to end with something that, hopefully I can say this without messing it up, but there are big ships and there are small ships, and there are ships that sail the sea. But the best ships are friendships, and may they always be.
All right, so a couple things. First of all, my father would be very, very proud, especially one of this event, and the overall longevity of this club. When, it was funny because Randy and I were talking about, when we originally sat with the attorneys to come up with this club, there was a guy, Tom McHugh, and it was Green, Lundgren, and Ryan. He sat and he said to us, he goes, Jack, I'm going to write this whole thing up, but in a couple of years it'll probably be defunct. And my father said then, I remember, he's like, write it up. It won't be defunct. And here it is, 35 years, I think it is. 35 years later, it's still up and going.
We're not sure the actual date. It's like when we
Well,
You might be able to say,
you want it for the record? Mr. Scheller, where's Mr. Scheller? He left?
He just left.
I have the floppy disk that has all the notes on it. So if anybody can go over to floppy disk, we can probably figure out exactly what it was. 84. We figured 83 to 84 was about the year that it was started. And he would be proud. He'd be unbelievably proud. I can remember the first meeting when we had it in the firehouse. I mean, that was a big step for us. I mean, most of the time it was with a half keg at the marina or at Norm's house. The club was starting on a lot of good ideas. It was to bring a lot of people that fish together, but it was also an environmental thing because people don't realize that fishermen are probably the greatest curators, I guess you could say, conservationists in terms of fishing. Randy and I were talking about the weed lines. Now everyone fishes weed lines. When we fished back in the 80s, it was trash lines. It really was. We fished for dolphin along lines and lines of trash that New York used to dump off the New Jersey coast. And Strathmere Fishing Environmental Club was key in trying to push to get that cleaned up. And next thing you know, I guess it was Christy Whitman we were talking about. I think Christy Whitman stepped in and she made a big movement and she stopped it. And today, I got to tell you, from fishing as a kid back in the 80s and just seeing how bad it was to what the condition of the ocean right now, it's phenomenal. And this club should be very, very proud because they were instrumental in starting that back in the 80s. And I don't know if we realized back then that we had that kind of weight. Right. But it was awesome.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
We were persistent.
You are? Yeah, I mean, hats off to everybody here.
Where's Eddie Andrews?
Yeah, Eddie was key in a lot of that. And a lot of things, the other big environmental thing, and it's still an issue today, was the turtles. We had a turtle tank back then. We'd literally send people up and down Whale Beach, probably for a weekend, picking turtles up to save turtles. Now everybody in New Jersey. That was big back then. Nobody really made a big deal about the turtles. They were getting massacred on the highways. But now every town you go into, please save the turtles. and that was Strathmere Fishing and Environmental Club. I mean, he would be proud. He'd be really proud.
You would like the reef program?
Oh, he would be very proud of this program. He would be very proud. I was listening to some of the things I was cracking up about there are many different stories about the Nightmare in Strathmere, how that happened. But I will tell you, one of the previous members, Don Brown, is actually the genesis of Nightmare in Strathmere. A lot of boats used to go to a night in Venice. One night on coming back, Don Brown probably drove his boat 60 yards up onto the marsh. Myself and all my friends had to back the boat up and help Don get it off, and we're all muddy. My dad's boat's muddy. I pull in, I go to bed. My father wakes me up at like 6 o'clock in the morning because he's going to open up the marina. He says, "What the?" We'll say, "What the hell? What the hell happened to my boat?" And I said, "Don Brown. He's a nightmare." And, I said, we're coming back from Nights in Venice, and we had to pull him off and stuff. And then, like I said, there's a lot of different stories where it came from, but I got to tell you, whoever knows Don Brown, just say, "Don Brown, thank you." That was the reason. He was a wild man. Remember that A-line? So that was that.
You got a different version.
You have a different version, I know. Everyone's got the different version, but I'm going to tell you, that was my version. The other thing that I have to say, I was listening to what people were saying, and this wouldn't have happened, not because of my father, but the camaraderie of this town, the people. I used to go into the bait shop, and it was like walking into Cheers. It really was. I heard Mr. Hollinger, as a kid, it was Mr. Hollinger, your grandfather, your father. Oh my God, I'd wake up, he'd be there in the chair, just tying knots and stuff. I mean, it's just, I got to tell you, it was a great group of people, and everyone should be thankful. I'm looking at these videos, the boats, the people. I looked at the list of the founding fathers. I mean, I got sad. I'm sad right now, honestly. I'm fighting back tears because the people on that list, there were so many good quality people that were there that committed themselves to this club. And like I said, I think my father would be very proud. So that's all I have. Thank you.
My favorite thing to say when we're golfing is, "Did anybody see my ball?"
Well, I just want to thank the board and Randy and everybody for putting together this meeting. What a great turnout. It's really a tribute to this organization and this club. And I got involved in this club a lot later than most of you folks, but Dick Omrod's not here. I guess it's Dick in Florida.
Yes.
So I guess when I first started fishing in 2000, I bought my uncle's old aqua sport. I knew nothing about boating, I knew nothing about fishing. And I remember when Walt was running Whale Creek Marina, Joe Coffey sold me a couple tuna stick rods and some spinning reels, and I thought you could use those for flounder fishing. And I'm walking down a Whale Creek one day with these two big rods and reels, and he's laughing at me, saying, "You can't use these for flounder fishing." And so then I met a guy, Grady Brown. You got a lot of you folks know Steve Brown, and he wishes he could be here today, but he's at a funeral. But I got to know him, and he taught me a lot about fishing. And that was going into 2001, 2002. And then I heard about this club right after Jack Clemens had passed. And I knew Steve Brown, I knew his uncle Jim Casey, and Mike Jarvis, another great guy, club member who's not here today because he's down in Florida. So the four of us, we got together and I said, I hear about this fishing club in Strathmere, we should join it. And I still remember the first day we joined, and it was a lot of fun because everybody voted us down, just like we did here for you folks today. And then we got in on the second round, and I always joke, and I say to Randy and Herbie, I say from that point forward, they had to get an extra 30-pack for every meeting. And Steve Brown and Mike Jarvis showed up. But I still remember that first meeting. Dave Townsend was there, Randy, and everybody, everybody's talked about the camaraderie of this club, which, and Herbie said it so well. I think the most important thing about this organization is the friendships. And even that first meeting, how Dave Townsend and Randy came up to the four of us, started, talking to us. We got to know everybody, and it's just a great organization. And having been on the board for 13 years, I know how much work the board members put into the club. I look at Ed DiMarcantonio down there and think of the fishing club, or the kids tournament that Bob Adams started out with Randy, and then Ed took it over. And what a great activity. But I just appreciate what the board members have done over the years to really make this club what it is. I was president after Rob called. Randy told me to tell some stories. I mean, I could tell a million stories. I remember I was vice president, Rob was president. We didn't even realize that we had no insurance for a year. So we're running a kids tournament with hooks flying. 300 kids on the beach, maybe more fishing, and everybody's lines are getting caught up. Hooks are flying. We didn't even know it at the time, but we had no insurance that year. I remember the time, because of a hurricane, I guess, Ed, we had to do the kids tournament and Nightmare in the same day. And that was a ton of work by the board. To organize and run the fishing tournament.
Hurricane Irene.
Yep. and then do Nightmare that night.
Yeah.
But I could tell a million stories like that of just the effort of the board to run these activities. Just a great organization, and I can't really add much to what's already been said in terms of the camaraderie of this club and friendships being the most important thing, because God knows, someone like myself, I knew nothing about fishing, but I learned a lot over the years, and just being, like Herbie said, being out on the water, and you see Candy and Frank out there fishing and catching a million flounder, and you see Herbie fishing with his father's old rigs, and just a great organization. And like Eddie Andrus said earlier, the tournaments have changed over the years. I mean, I remember the Bluefish tournament. I kind of went by the wayside, the Weakfish tournament, but it's been replaced with the Reef tournament, which is a great thing. And the people we miss, like Bud Lyon, Debbie Starr, Tom, you're here today. I just love at the board meetings how Debbie used to go at it with Herbie, with Randy. They get on each other, and Debbie was such a vital force of the club. And Jane Shetler, and I see Joe Callahan here. Joe, you still here? Joe's over here. Sally took over, was president after me, and she brought a lot of great changes to the club, a lot of great ideas. Sally worked so hard doing coming up with the Super Bowl idea, and then running that booze cruise. So, and then and now Scott and Wayne working so hard, and the new members, Rose, and I think of Carol Ferguson too. That Carol was mentioned, and how much effort, time Carol put into the club. So,
Carol Jamison, I tried to contact
or excuse me, Carol Jamison, not Carol, but also Carol Ferguson and Dave Ferguson. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the effort that people have done and put into making this organization such a great organization. So I really can't add much more that's already been said, but again, I thank the current board for their efforts, because I know, having been on that board for 13 years, how much work is involved. Dick Omrod got me involved early on, probably 2 years after I joined, and it's kind of apropos now with regard to the Russians, but Dick called me up, he said, Mike, we kind of run this like the Russians. You're going to be head of public relations. You don't even have a choice. And I didn't know anything about it. I called Randy. I'm like, what am I supposed to do as a public relations officer? Randy's like, just get in touch with the papers and do this and that. And that led to, and I was vice president, and just a lot of fun times, a lot of great meetings, great socialization, and again, thanks everybody for the turnout. I thank everybody who put this together, because this is a great turnout. This is the kind of turnout we should have at these meetings. We were shut down for 2 years with COVID,
Right.
but I don't know what the membership's at right now. but it'd be great to see this many people involved and coming to these meetings regularly. So enjoy yourselves. Thanks, everyone.
I'm Joe Callahan. At the time, probably one of the youngest members of the original fishing club. Back then, I had blonde hair and more hair and about 40 less pounds. So I was in college at the time, and it was like myself and John and Pat Man, Beak. And so there was a couple of us young guys in town. And so Jack and Jim Mann and the different fellows were glad to see that some of us younger guys back then be involved with the club. So I'm just going to share a couple of highlights that I can remember that I thought stuck out, people might forget. The very first surffish tournament, I think Eddie ran it, and Tommy was helping it, Tommy Andrus. And after the tournament, we had a longest cast contest, and it was on the beach. And so Jimmy goes, my brother Jimmy, he's like, you're going to go out in the field there, and we're going to throw a weight, and you're going to put a stick down where it is. So I'm out there, and I'm trying to, of course, I'm the dumbass to do that. So I put the stick down, and so Eddie and Jimmy, they're doing it. Everybody casts. You have 2 casts, and you use only 1 rod. So Jimmy and Eddie throw the 2 longest casts, and they're pretty close together, within about 6 feet. And so, and then Tommy's like, hold on, Joey gets 1 more cast. And Jimmy's like, would you just hurry up and get this over with? So I unleashed one about 30 yards past them. And Eddie and Jimmy were like, oh, Jesus Christ. And so I ended up winning the first longest cast contest. And that was the last one I think we ever had, too, because no one was dumb enough to go out in the field with the other thing I remember is people forget, and it was a scary moment. For years, Tommy ran this thing, and we was out at the old Cohasset Country Club, which was, so we had the Strathmere Fishing Environmental Club golf tournament about an hour from here. And so we had people like Joe Dawson and Slick out there, Billy Hennessy and a t-shirt, Jamison boys out there. I mean, these people were hammered. I mean, there was a keg out right in the middle of the thing, and I mean, I was the most it got scary because we had to stop it because coming home, we're like every year we're like, how'd you get home? I mean, no one knew how we got home. It was a bit too much.
We stopped at Otto's.
Oh my God, yeah, oh my God. That was like a biker bar. It was just not a good scene. I remember Billy Hennessy was in my back seat, and he's like ready to brawl. I'm like, and I'm just like this young kid. And no one knew Billy Hennessy. He was a mean sucker. And I'm like, Billy, let me just get you home. I mean, it was scary. The other thing that I remember is the bluefish tournaments, because they were legendary. And in fact, we first started it, and we won a couple, and we were doing it in a 17-foot whaler, the old Newport model, and we were doing a 20-mile wreck. And my dad's just like, you guys are nuts. So we finally, he said, you're doing this, and it's the very beginning. And so he went out and got us a 22-foot used boat, so we could be safe going out to the bluefish tournament. So that was the old Glen Bay. So that was a classic, doing that. And then the last thing, where I'm going to give you my version, because I was there. I was lifeguarding, and John was lifeguarded with me, and Pat Man. And for some reason, lunch break, it was right around Nights in Venice. I don't know if I went to Nights in Venice or not, because I went to a couple in my time. And so I'm hungover as a dog. I've got my lifeguard uniform on. I got the whistle around my neck. I walk into Twisties. Back then, I guess it was Jonesy was bartending. Jeff Jones, I think, was the day shift bartender. And so, and on the stroll, I go right up on the one side, the left side, as soon as you walk in the door. And on the right side, there's Jimmy, my brother, Jack Clemens, and Dave Townsend. And if they're sitting there in a tense conversation, and I'm sitting there eavesdropping on the conversation. And these guys are planning. They've got the perfect idea. I guess they had just gotten back from Nights in Venice. This was probably when the famous Don Brown wipeout. And so Jack's like explaining what they want to do. We're going to do this parade, and we're going to mock Nights in Venice. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm trying to get their attention. And finally, Jimmy goes, "What the hell do you want?" I said, "Great idea, guys." And I'm literally at the clock. I got to go back to friggin' work. And I said, you gotta call it the Nightmare in Strathmere. And Chuck's like, oh, that's perfect. And so I finished my Budweiser and went back to work.
Save lives.
Save lives, yeah.
So you're taking credit for coming up with the name.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Joe Callahan.
You and I were on the same stand that day.
Right,
You and I were the same, and I think I may have told you the Don Brown story.
right. That's how it happened.
Probably the most knowledgeable fisherman, one of the most, in the Mid-Atlantic region. Bucktail, he helps the club so much, is keeping us informed about the regs as they change and how we might be able to participate in that. So we're going to turn it over to Bucktail for a couple of minutes.
I've only been a member since 2000, but I've been fishing here since 1948 when I caught my first striper when we had a home in Whale Creek and Whale Beach. But I'm a member of the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Council's Advisory Council for summer flounder and was for striped bass, but now I'm an alternate on striped bass. And for the past 11 years I've been involved with that. It's a very frustrating job because they don't listen to the advisors. But anyway, we get our voice heard. And this past year was kind of unique because we heard from Maine to North Carolina, the position on summer flounder was the same from the fishermen who were advisors, but they didn't listen to us. They kept it at 18 inches anyway. So, you know, the regulations are what they are. We're going to see some changes this year. Sea bass is going to take about a 22% cut, I think it is. Summer flounder has an increase of 16%. However, they're reporting that New Jersey overfished their allotment and New York underfished it. So the bulk of the 16% is going to go to New York, I think. That could change because there's a couple things going on here in the next 10 days that could change all that, but that's the way it is right now. I've been, like I said, I've been fishing this area for a long time, and I got a couple stories I'll talk about before the 62 storm. Prior to the 62 storm, this inlet, Strathmere and Corson's Inlet, was the #1 inlet on the Jersey coast for catching fish. It had 2 deep channels coming through, one on this side, one on the other side. There was 2 boat liveries on the other side and a couple on this side, and that channel on the other side was thick with fish constantly. Strathmere Bay was a deep bay. It would averaged about 10 feet, and spots of 40 feet in spaces, and you never saw dry land on low tide like you do now. But we would catch fish right there. You could go out and catch 100 flounder, nothing. We used to sit in what we call Cheeseman's Creek, which is on the other side. On the incoming tide, we'd catch flounder. On the outgoing tide, we'd be catching kingfish. And I'm not talking, 10 or 12. We're talking 20, 30, 40. And one weekend, there was 2 10-pound flounders caught in Cheeseman's Creek. I had one of them. And one was caught on Saturday, the next one was caught on a Sunday, and I got the one on Sunday with a little over 10 pounds. But then we had the storm of 62, changed everything. The whole fishery has changed. You know, the spots that were producing before the storm didn't produce anymore. And we lost a lot of good bottom, let's put it that way. Clam beds, mussel beds, grass beds, all shot as a result of that. Slowly coming back, but those days are probably going forever, and we'll have to live with what we've got. We didn't have any regulations back then. We had plenty of fish. Let's stop and think about that. Is the regulations giving us fish or taking fish from us? I don't know. But nevertheless, when I look at the ASMFC, when I look at all their data, there's only one fish that they can take credit for recovering over the last 20 years. That's the spiny dogfish. It's the only one. I mean, everything else, they have ups and downs, but look at the total curve. From where it was when it started to where it is now, they can't say They've been screwed.
Sharky has a
Anyway, I mean, I'll be, I think I'll be on this ASMSC for one more year, and then I'm gonna try to get out.
Well, we appreciate you doing what you do.
Joe Callahan.
taking credit for coming up with the name.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You and I were on the same team that day.
Right,
You and I were the same, and I think I'm there.
Joe Callahan.
Taking credit for coming up with the name.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You and I were on the same team that